So Germany's role in the European refugee crisis is particular. It has been rather surprising to see that on September 4 and 5th, the German government has decided to open the borders. It did so without having organized an EU summit before. This is quite unusual, and I think it's not in line with the long-term political and economic logic of German governments. So Helmut Schmidt or Helmut Kohl certainly would not have taken that type of decision. They would have sought early on the EU cooperation in this field. It is not clear to me why we have such a policy stance in Berlin. Maybe that the dynamics of the Euro crisis, where Germany played a very strong role, has suggested to some people in the Chancellor's office that Germany can take isolated decisions. That certainly is not adequate. The standard logic of sound long-term political and economic decision-making is that Germany is a reliable partner in the European Union, and there are serious doubts if Chancellor Merkel in this case is not seeking the political coordination with its EU partners. So we are facing a serious challenge. Germany is rather isolated in the field of the refugee policy. In my view, the decision-making in Berlin has generated some momentum for European disintegration, actually. And if there should be a decision on June 23rd in the UK that the UK would like to leave the European Union, well, then we would face full disaster. So it's not just important for the European Union that there is continuous cooperation, but it's important for all the regional integration schemes in the world economy. Until recently, you could go and visit a conference, let's say in Bangkok or in Buenos Aires, and people would ask you, what can we learn from European integration? There are regional integration schemes such as Mercosur in Latin America, or ASEAN in Asia, or ECOWAS in Africa, and so on. And they all have been very much inspired by EU integration dynamics and integration successes. So if the message from Berlin and Brussels would be that there is EU disintegration, this would seriously undermine economic growth worldwide and also political stability. Because if there would be less regional integration in Europe, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, there will be lower economic growth, higher unemployment rates, and more refugees to come. This certainly is not in the interest of Germany or the EU or the world economy as such. So one can only hope that the German government returns to a course which is more European. At the moment, there is a serious risk that Greece will be overwhelmed by the influx of refugees. And again, it's doubtful that the German government so far has not agreed that there will be debt cuts for Greece. The IMF has argued that the debt burden of Greece is not sustainable. And in a country which has zero economic growth, which has very weak prospects of higher growth, it will be very difficult to cope with the wave of refugees. So it is also important that the EU institutions should get a bigger role. Europe as a regional integration scheme will not survive if decision-making would be primarily taken in the capitals of Germany, of France, of Italy, and so on. We have created these European institutions for good reasons, and they should get a much more prominent role in the future, including the European Parliament, which so far is, again, relatively weak. It's the European Commission which has this awkward hybrid position to be active as a lawmaker and to be the executive branch of the European Union. It would be much better to have a stronger European Parliament.